time, JT and the Don with your hosts, Jimmy Thompson and Donato Bucci. They're covering the most current issues in sports from the 305 to the 412 and all the way to the West Coast. You can follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JT and the Don, or email them at jtandthedon@gmail.com. Now take it away, guys.
Give them a shot to do what?
Welcome to the next episode of JT and the Don, presented by Give Us a Shot Network. I am the Don, Donato Bucci, and remember to subscribe to us on all of the major platforms where you find all of your other favorite podcasts, and remember to subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. Thank you to the wonderful introduction by Nicole Thompson, and thank you for the JT and the Don pump up music, as always, by our guy, Mike Regina. On this episode, we have our most popular guest, but first, let me welcome in everyone's favorite host, JT Jimmy Thompson. How you feeling today?
Nah, just go straight to him, man. Like,
all right, good. Yeah,
I love this show because I don't got to say much, so just go straight to him.
We don't want to see you or talk to you, JT, or hear from
you.
So,
hey, look, I can turn my camera off right now. Hey, don't tempt me with a good time.
Please do. Well, let me welcome in, as I said, our most popular guest, rating-wise, always off the charts with him. He is the offensive coordinator and running backs coach of the Landon Bears, Coach Connor Cassidy. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for the time.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's always so much fun to be on with you.
Always. Listen, we had our fantasy football show. Then next week we've got the NFL preview show. But in between is always the great show of the college football preview of the 2024 season. So, JT, let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it. So, we got to start with the obvious elephant in the room is the college football playoff. So, biggest change this upcoming season is the 12-team playoff. So I know everyone's excited about that. Everyone thinks their team has a chance to make it. But let's ask the obvious question. Will having a 12-team playoff lessen the value of the regular season? I'm going straight to Coach because, Don, we don't care what you got to say.
I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. But I don't think it's going to lessen the value of the regular season. I think it's going to enhance the overall regular season experience. And I think about it this way, like obviously everyone's going to try to go undefeated, right? Everyone wants to have a perfect regular season record, win their conference championship, and get that bye in the top 4 seed in the playoff. But what it's going to do is going to make meaningful those games between teams in that like 1-loss, 2-loss, potentially, depending on how the year goes, even 3-loss teams late in the year who will be vying for those last slots in the playoff, which in previous years with the 4-team playoff would already have been eliminated. And so they were just like playing for pride or whatever. And so I think it's actually going to keep more teams involved for longer down the stretch. And so I think for that reason, it's going to make the regular season more exciting and more meaningful for more teams. And that'll just enhance the viewer experience and the fan experience as well.
So, Coach Cassidy, first, I apologize for not properly introducing you as JT and the Don's college football expert. I think I left that part out. So I apologize. And this is exactly why
you see how bad he is at his job. He's so bad at his job.
I got excited.
You can't intro the guests right. You don't pick the right topics. You have the wrong order. You just not helpful at all. Like I wish I could have Connor just be my full-time partner on this show because he's got his stuff together. Connor always comes prepared. You never come prepared.
I was excited. Can I not be excited? We have a great guest on, man.
Well, be excited to answer the question, and let's hear the first wrong answer of the show.
But this is why you don't have the guest, the expert, go first, because he knocks it out of the ballpark. He stole my answer. There's not much more to say, but I'll always chime in here. No, I mean, in the past, top four would only make it. So that meant like only teams like Alabama, Ohio State, those Georgia, those type of teams were the only ones that could possibly get in with 2 losses. If you go look at it, there are going to be some 2-loss teams in here that usually hover around 10, 11, 12. So to what Coach Cassidy said, that means if you lose that early game in September, in the past, especially 40 years ago, you were out. Even the past 10 years, the past decade with the 14 playoff, you still were in trouble based on your team name. If you were Miami and you lost early in September, you were pretty much done. So I do think it allows those 2 team losses to still be playing and have a shot, as well as think about this, the late season games for non-bowl teams, right? Non-bowl teams versus a number 10, a number 11, a number 12 team. In the past, that non-bowl team really had nothing to play for because the 10, 11, 12 team was not going to make the playoffs. They were going to go to a pretty good bowl, and they may not even have been playing all their players at that point because they may have been getting ready for the NFL draft. But now that 4 and 8 team playing their 13th game of the year against the number 10 team at home, there's something to play for. You have a chance, and it's usually a conference game. You have a chance, and sometimes that last week's the rivalry game. You have a chance to knock your rival out or a conference opponent out of the playoffs. So even the teams that aren't going to make the playoffs still have meaningful games down the stretch because more teams, even if you're ranked 15th and you're playing a team in the 15th spot, you basically have a chance to knock them out of the playoffs. So I think there's going to be a lot more meaningful games, and I think it makes the regular season more meaningful instead of less.
I'm 50-50 on this because I think you guys make great points. But for the sake of the show, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say I think it is going to lessen, the value of the regular season. One, because think about the teams. Like I think a team like a UCF or, one of those like best of 5 teams that would have to be perfect in the past. Like now they have, a wider margin for error. Maybe they can get in with 1 loss, depending on how their season shakes out. So I think for those teams, like they're always going to be on full tilt no matter what time of year it is and where they are in the schedule. My concern is for those Power 5 programs where it could go either way. So let's say, I don't know where it would fall in the year. So let's say I got 9 wins and I'm a Power 5 program like Oregon and I'm a lock to be a top 4 finisher in my conference. Like, do I take my foot off the gas, try to get my team healthy and like I know I'm not going to make the conference championship, but I still got a chance to get in? Or look at the other way. Let's say I'm like a Texas A&M and we're not making the playoffs. So do I just like my players who are going to the NFL or thinking about going to the NFL, just stop playing, leave the program and, go focus on that? So I think for the big teams, I think it will lessen just because you don't have to be perfect to get in. Like it's not just going to be the SEC has, room for error. It's going to be other conferences too. Like Miami could probably get in with 2 losses if we're looking at it because that could be a top 3 team in the ACC. So I think to a degree it is going to lessen the regular season, but I don't know to what extent yet because you can't measure how these teams are going to play and how much it's going to mean to them. So that's why I'm like 50-50 and on the fence about it.
So let's go to Elite Jammer 5. He says 12 team is great. UCF can't get shafted no more. Very true. And I think this is why it makes it more meaningful. But JT, really quick, I know we don't want to spend too much time on the first question because we got a lot to get to.
Then don't do it.
So, but no, I do need to clarify something. So you're saying if Oregon is sitting in, ranked 6th, not going to make their conference title game, or they're ranked 8th, you're saying they could sit some guys in that final regular season game?
I think you could see it really start to be like an NFL situation where it's like, hey, we got enough wins to maybe make the playoffs, and maybe this guy's a little bit more banged up than we're telling people. Yeah. Let's rest him a little bit more than we normally would, because in the past, you can't sit that guy because you got to go undefeated to make the college football playoffs.
But JT, what I would say is, though, depending on who they're playing, if they're playing Washington that last game of the year, that's usually pretty good. Are you willing to take a risk to sit guys and lose? Because you're forgetting this isn't like –
It depends.
No, hold on. Let me explain why. It's not like the NFL here where it's based only on record. You have the human element of a committee. So you do that once, they'll stick it to you. They'll move you from 8 to 13 to teach everyone a lesson. So that's why I disagree with what you mentioned there about sitting guys. Listen, no college coach, I don't think, will ever take a game for granted. They can do it in the NFL because seedings are locked. That's not true when you have the human element of rankings. So
I think it just depends on the schedule, because what you could see is maybe they schedule those easier, like, cupcake games at the end of the year, where like the harder games are going to be at the beginning of the year. I think you have to see how it shakes out.
That's always happened. That's always happened anyway. So that would be no different.
All right. So we know the SEC always gets helped out. So I want to ask you guys, which conference do you think is going to be at the biggest disadvantage with this new playoff system, Coach?
Well, I mean, you said it. Obviously, SEC is in the driver's seat, and right there next to them is the Big 10. And so then you look at the other two power conferences, and you're deciding between the Big 12 and the ACC. And I think the ACC is the conference that suffers. I think that is mostly because of the overall depth of the Big 12. I think the Big 12 is deeper and has more year in and year out quality football programs. Going into this year, I think the Big 12 has 5 teams ranked in the preseason top 25, whereas the ACC only has 4. And so, if you're looking at a team on the bubble at the end of the year, they're going to be comparing resumes, right? And so what are you going to look at? You're going to look at strength of schedule, and you're going to look at like quality wins. And if you're just the third place team from the ACC, you might only have wins over teams like BC and Syracuse and Virginia. Compare that to a cluster of wins that you might find in the Big 12. Think of like BYU or Houston or UCF. And I think like year in and year out, the quality wins are going to be more likely to come from the Big 12. And I think that's where the ACC has a tougher road there.
I personally don't think any conference suffers. I don't think any conference has a disadvantage because, in fact, like they all win, because the scenario that Coach Cassidy just said, maybe in the past, no ACC team ends up in the top 4, right? The only way they get a team in is if they go undefeated. And Florida State went undefeated and did not get in this past year. So I think going to 12 teams is a great advantage, probably more so than any other conference for the ACC now, because they're almost guaranteed to have one unless their conference champion has 3 or 4 losses. And then at that point, you haven't earned the right to get into the playoffs anyway. But Clemson with 1 loss gets in, maybe 2, they can get in depending on the year and how strong the ACC is. If NC State loses 1 game, they probably get in, whereas in other years, they would never crack the top 4 with the Alabamas, the Michigans, the Ohio States. And to be honest, I think the mid-level conferences obviously have a great advantage now, because I don't feel the committee will feel that they're preventing a power conference team from getting in now. They're willing to put that 1 loss or an undefeated UCF team or a whatever other team, a Memphis team. Like, they're willing to put that in because there's so many more spots and they don't feel like they're taking it away from anybody. So I think that I think truly anyone can get in, and it's not really a disadvantage anymore.
It'll be interesting to see how many like group of 5 teams get in and year out. And if it's just the automatic bid or if they'll put a second team in.
And that's why I got to agree with Coach, is because I think the ACC, I think in the short term, they'll be at the disadvantage the most, just because the marquee teams in that conference are the ones that are reeling. FSU's kind of not what they used to be, or at least not what they were last year. Clemson's on the decline. It's more of like those middle tier schools like us, the NC State, that are really kind of promising. So whereas like the SEC, you know who the top dogs are. Same thing with the Big 12, the Big 10. Like, you know who the top dogs are in those programs. Like, they're not going anywhere. So I say short term, it's the ACC. But like he said, I got to see how many bids they're willing to give to like these non-power conference schools that have these great seasons. We just don't know yet, man.
But they're still winning. What chance did they have for the top 4? You've seen it. UCF went undefeated. They may have run the table if there was a true 12-team playoff. You never know. So why do you feel there's a disadvantage? But where's the disadvantage, honestly? Among the SEC, of course. But that's going to happen whether you put 50 teams in. They're going to put all the SEC.
When I say disadvantage, I'm thinking about any team that's not a lock to be a top 2 finisher in that conference. Like, when you start looking at 3 and 4 teams, it's like, okay, like, which one of those conferences are we gonna value the 3rd or 4th best team over somebody else? Like, that's where I think the ACC is at a disadvantage, because the 3rd or 4th best team could be like Pitt. Like, I don't know if they're gonna get in over like a perfect UCF or a perfect Tulane. Like, if it was the SEC, I would say, yeah, I feel more confident. But the ACC is that conference where I don't think they'll give us that cachet.
Or the fifth team in the SEC.
There you go.
That's all I'm saying is I disagree now, because I think they're willing to put those mid-levels in because they're already going to put 3 SEC teams in. So
the mid-levels are more exciting though, like March Madness. Like, I don't think they want to see Pitt. You want to see Pitt finish as the 4th best ACC team, or you want to see an undefeated Tulane?
If they go on the road to play Penn State,
they're going to pick Tulane.
But that's what I'm saying. They may pick Tulane over, the 4th or 5th LSU team anymore.
Oh, that would never happen. So, if LSU is the top 3 team in the SEC, they're getting in.
You misheard me. I said top 4 or 5 now. I said SEC is going to get 3 in. SEC is getting 3 in. So forget about that. So let's talk about the NIL, name, image, and likeness. JT's
Bro, we know
favorite,
what it means.
All of our favorites.
Can you move over a little bit into the camera? We can't see your face. You giving a bunch of bad takes and you're trying to hide. Sit up so we can see you.
I want you to know that I always think about, all right, the first-time viewers, right? You've got people, just like anytime LeBron or Mario Lemieux would take the ice, the court, whatever, they are trying to please the people, that are there the first time, all right? I wish I had a partner that was as good as like Scottie Pippen, right? You don't carry your own. You always interrupt me. All right, anyway, because I'm MJ, all right? I'm MJ. Listen, the NIL is still a hot topic when it comes to college athletics. So, in particular, college football. Now, Mike Gundy threw some fuel on the fire with his comments that he told the players, his Oklahoma State players, there is no negotiating. Now they were playing football. As we know, Dabo already or has been critical in the past of the NIL. So, Coach Cassidy, are these coaches outdated and on the way out, or do they actually have a point?
So I think it's a great question, but I think when you dig in and look at Gundy's remarks in more context, he's got a point that can be defended. And I think what happened was a lot of the shows took his small soundbite and then really tried to be critical of him. But when you
JD just kind of did that too. He threw this one in.
No, it's all good. I think it's a great question. And when you really boil it down, what you get is like Coach Gundy giving you pure coach speak. So he's referring to questions that pertain to like the pending NCAA antitrust suit that Judge Wilkin is set to give a ruling on. And, the potential changes that could come forth moving ahead in college football, where we move away from NIL to actually directly paying the players. And he's referring to like how much uncertainty there is in the situation. And so he, as well as like every other coach in football, essentially is like as, unprepared for the current situation as anyone else. And what he's basically saying is like, we've negotiated NIL, since last December, essentially all the way up through the start of this football season. We deal with the portal in December. We deal with the portal after spring ball. But now like the regular season is underway and like we're focusing on football. We're not going to focus on NIL deals per se. And ironically, like in the same span of time when these quotes were coming out about him, the Cowboys are also getting all this publicity for having these QR codes on the back of their helmets, right? And so, months ago, he was sitting down with his director of business and finance. That's where it's gotten to these days, right? And was, figuring out a way for, boosters or fans of the Cowboys to contribute to their collective. And he was thinking about it as like, we need a GoFundMe. And so they get this idea to throw the QR codes on the back of the helmet. So I think like to paint him as someone who does not like support his players in this NIL market, I think is a little bit short-sighted, especially in light of what they're trying to do to help their guys out. But I think he's just trying to tell his guys, like, if we want to win football games, we can't be worried about, your NIL. Right now, it's time to focus on K-State. Now it's time to focus on, BYU, and worry about the things that are in your control and not what you can't control at this point.
JT, that was well said, Coach Cassidy.
Nobody's trying to hear that. First of all, that would be the equivalent of me going to Mike Gundy. He's up for a contract negotiation or get his deal done, and we're just like, hey, man, don't worry about it. Go focus on K-State. Don't worry about your livelihood. We'll get an extension done. Like, no. Like, to me, I do agree with you. If I had to pick which one is better suited to be a player's coach and care more about his players and what actually happens to them outside of winning games for him, I would say Mike Gundy, because he's been fighting the media for his players for over a decade. So shout out to Bobby Reed. I'm a man. I'm 40. So he's been doing that for his players, whereas Dabo, he's been against this whole thing. I think there are two different issues with them. The main issue where I'm going to group them together is this is clearly an indication why some coaches that coach in college can't coach in the NFL, because this is a question you can't avoid if you want to coach at the next level. Like, and the NCAA is slowly turning into a mini NFL. Guys are getting paid. They're employees. They're not quote unquote student athletes anymore. So not only do you have to be responsible for, them as players, but you also have to talk finances with them. And I think some of these guys aren't used to doing that, because when you discuss finances with a player, it's not so much as a player-coach relationship rather than it's a partnership. That's what the pros is. And I think that's what a lot of coaches have an issue and a problem adapting with, is they're used to seeing players as this, whereas when you're paying them, it's closer to a partnership. So I don't think Gundy, just based on what you said, I don't think he's really a bigger issue. To me, it's Dabo, because he's been so against it before they approved it. He's been against it after. Like, it's not going anywhere. Get over it. The issue with me with Dabo, and I think why it's going to pass him by, is he also refuses to do anything in the transfer portal. It's like, if he didn't recruit you, you're not going to Clemson, which in this day and age is insane. Like, look how good teams get so fast because of the transfer portal. So the fact that he's so stubborn tells me that he thinks all of Clemson's success is because of him, and it's not. It's the players. Clemson has had generational talent under Dabo. Like, he's not an X's and O's guy, so I don't understand why he's trying to take the credit like it's not the players that helped him get to the status. And why anybody that doesn't want to see your guys win after all the hard work they do for you, I just can't trust them. So I do think Dabo's on the way out. Mike Gundy will always be around because he seems like a guy that maybe the players like playing for. So that's just my opinion on both of them.
Well, I think you're both right. I think, and you
time out. Before you go, I appreciate you saying we're both right. And I'm just not going to let you diss the question because Coach Connor said it was a good question. Yes, say it with your whole chest. Yes, I came up with the question. You're like, oh, that's okay. It's a good question, man. Come on. You're such a hater.
It's all right. You said NIL. Everyone knows about it. It's been overused. Like,
You're a hater. So, I want to see you put a question in here that people routinely say, hey, that's a good topic. I'm excited to talk about it. When they do, then I'm going to listen to you.
See, you got so excited. He said it was a good question because you barely get that. You barely get that credit. So, I mean, when you do get a good question, when I work with a hater like you, I don't expect to get much credit. Sure. I know my worth. I know the work I put in. You've dissed me all show, and you call me the hater. Anyway, I think you're both right. You both bring up really great points. Going to Gundy's comments first, I think Coach Cassidy, you were right, taken out of context. But JT brought up a good point. I was going to go along the lines of negotiating. If he's middle of the season 6-0, we may not hear about it, but behind closed doors, I'm sure they're working on an extension. Like, they're renegotiating his contract. So it's okay for the coaches to do it, but not the players with the NIL. Why? I mean, I don't know. That's a question for Gundy. But I would also say this. Coaches want their players to be buttoned up, give the PC answer, give the team answer, and not it be about the individual. Yet coaches, it seems like, get to say whatever they want. We've had Nick Saban talk about, he always took shots at the media that they were rat poison. He'd have his Coca-Cola bottle there. You better believe he got paid for that. And now you've got Gundy coming out. Instead of just saying it behind closed doors, I think if you say it behind closed doors to the team gets the message like, all right, we do get that. Like, we understand it's football time. But when you put us on blast in front of the media, now they're talking about it on JT and the Don with their college football expert, we feel slighted in a certain way. Like, why do you have to call us out? You don't want us to do that to the coaching staff. You don't want us to do that, as quarterbacks. You don't want us to do that to our teammates. But the coach can take whatever shots. Like, I understand you're the head coach, but at the same time, it's like, why are these college coaches adding fuel to the fire? Like, don't you understand that hurts recruiting? Like, if I'm a recruit right now, I'm like, I see the way they do it there. Do I want to be a part of that? I don't know. And the whole Dabo thing, yeah, he has to evolve. I think that, does he have a point? I think he has a point to a certain extent with, yes, you want your core guys, which we've seen, you do want them to be your recruits. It can't be 100% portal. But if you do what Florida State did, you recruit right, then you bring in the portal guys like a Jared Verse and a couple other guys, then you really can build off of it. So, yeah, I think Dabo is outdated with that, and he's got to use the portal more. But let's not go the other way and only go the portal, because culture and building team unity obviously is still important in college football, and you see it with Georgia. It's mostly their recruits, but what do they do really well? They bring in those portal guys, and they get rid of the dead weight, where you see a lot of those Georgia guys go somewhere else. You never hear them again. There's a reason, because the Georgia staff knows who's a Georgia guy, and they know who cannot be a Bulldog.
I just know every player in every recruiting class can't be good enough just because they sign with a specific school. I agree with you, but I will say this and then we'll move on. I think another issue specifically with Dabo, and you asked a good question. You're like, why are they even talking about this? Because it's not like we hear the players out there tweeting like, hey, like Gundy's, sitting on my NIL deal. He's not getting back to me about my money. Like, we never hear about that stuff. I think this is just what happens when you don't have any apex, when you're an apex predator, like you have no other people out there gunning for you. Like, these coaches at the top of the food chain, like nobody checks them. Like, they run the school. In some instances, they're the highest paid state employees. So like, when you have nobody to answer to, like, you just do stuff that we just can't explain. Like, I don't understand why Dabo's going out of his way to talk about the NIL. He ain't changing nothing. It's going to happen whether we have his approval or not. So why not just shut up and have people think you're on board with it and save face? But I don't get it. What? Let's go to what we came here for. Like, Don, we don't care what you got to say. It's prediction time. So I'm tired of telling Coach C that he's right. I know you're the expert, but you hit on these every year. So I didn't even go back and listen to the tape because I knew everything you said on these predictions was right. So that's a first. But we're going to do it again.
JT got his ticket booked for Las Vegas already, Coach C. So he's planning on making money this year.
No, I'm going to just send you. I'm going to send you with my bets and just make sure you bring back my
Never
receipt.
Been to Vegas. I'm not going to step in the casino. Nope.
That's a lie. All right. So we're going to start with the team prediction. So let's start with your preseason top five. So it doesn't have to be in any specific order. If you want to do an order, you can, but what teams are in your preseason top five right now, Coach?
Well, I went 1 through 5. I went Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Alabama, and Ohio State.
All right. Don?
I'm going to go in order as well. I've got Ohio State at the top. They're loaded. Way too much talent. If we're looking just on paper, which this is the way I took it, I've got to put them number one, even though I don't want to. Then I go Oregon, Georgia, Alabama. And listen, I'm still going to put Michigan. How can we not put the defending champ? How can we not put the 3-time, Big Ten champs on there? I've got them at 5 still.
So, yeah, I like those. I'm going to go backwards. I got Oregon at 5, Michigan at 4. I agree with you, Don. They just got too much talent. Texas at 3, Georgia 2, and Ohio State, as much as I hate them with all my heart, I got them at 1. They're just too talented, like you said. All right. So let's start.
We're not Hurricane fans, huh? We just can't stand.
Bro, I still remember where I was when that game happened when we lost. Like, I was sitting in my living room. We had already lost Willis McGahee. I was like, all right, cool. The game's over. I was like, what are you throwing this flag for? It's still traumatic, so I don't want to really talk about it. But let's throw some shots at some teams. Most overrated team, Coach, who you got?
I had the Aggies. If yet again, I think I throw shade at them almost every year. Yet again, they find themselves in the top 25, coming off a 7-6 season with 0 wins over a ranked opponent. And they're undergoing a coaching transition with Mike Elko coming in to take over, who had obviously been there as a D coordinator under Jimbo for a couple of years before going off to Duke and doing great things. And I think he's a great coach, and I think he's going to get it going in the right direction. But I think it's still a little early and ambitious to have them in the top 25.
All right, Dom,
Okay.
Who you got?
I'm going to stay in Texas, but I'm going to go Texas. They were my team last year, but I'm going against them this year because they have that hype now. They're what? Preseason top 3, top 4. Question is, can Quinn Ewers stay healthy, or can he play consistent enough? Like, that's always been his issue, because then if he doesn't stay healthy, do we believe in Arch Manning yet? I don't know. But I think the kicker for them is, even though the Big 12 was really good last year and will be again this year, we all know it. It's a different beast in the SEC. I'm sorry. Like, I am not confident they can hold up the whole season and make that run in the playoffs. Like, can they get to the playoffs out of the SEC? So that's my concern. When you start top 5 preseason, I'm expecting you now to make the playoffs because it's been expanded to 12 teams. I would say hold your horses on that. Like, pump the brakes. I'm not sure if Texas makes the playoffs.
Man, so to anybody that's watching that's a Longhorns fan, Don basically said that win at Alabama last year meant nothing. All right, nice.
And you do it week in, week out in the SEC. That's the question. Like, changing conferences is a big deal now. Like, it may not impact some teams, but I think it definitely will impact others. It's a different style of play. Like, the travel is different. The atmosphere is different every week. Like, can you get yourself up every week in those, like, big moments? It's tough.
No, I agree with you on that. Look, I'm gonna be a hater of this show. And I'm just gonna be upfront with you guys. So my most overrated team is Clemson. It's got to be them. They're number 14. How are they number 14 when they went 4-4 in ACC play last year for the first time since like 2010? How much talent can this team continue to lose and be successful? And Dabo, we just talked about him. He's reeling in the media. Like, all that stuff presents distractions. Like, this ain't the Trevor Lawrence Clemson where, like, Dabo could be out here acting an ass. And, you know, the team's just so talented, it doesn't matter what distractions are going on behind the scenes. Like, if they're not careful, they're reminding me, they're heading toward that scenario where USC was when the Pete Carroll era was over. It was like, yeah, they had talent, but it was just something missing, and they kept getting worse and worse every year. So Clemson's my most overrated team, and I just don't want to see them succeed. I could have been petty and picked FSU, but I hate Clemson more right now. All right, so let's flip the script. Most underrated team. Coach, I want to go to Dom first because he's going to claim you stealing all his answers, so I want to give him a chance to speak first so he can't complain.
I just want to say you reminded me of the Randy Shannon Hurricane years when you're talking about
exact same thing. That's what's going to happen to Clemson. I hope they never recover.
Well, so for most underrated team, I'm going to go Boise State. We always seem to forget about them. They are to college football what Gonzaga is to college hoops, in my opinion. Like, they're going to consistently be good. They're going to be out 2-3 hours behind us. Not many people will watch them, but they'll be there at the end in the bowl games and maybe now in the playoffs. Listen, they won the Mountain West last year under the interim coach, Spencer Danielson, after they started 5-5. And now they were able to recruit USC transfer and former blue chip quarterback Malachi Nelson, but it does look like Madsen is actually going to win the starting job. So they have depth.
Crazy.
It is. They have depth at quarterback. And to me, when I looked in the preseason top 25 poll, I didn't even see them. And I can't believe that, because did whoever did the rankings, did they forget that they have Ashton Genty, the stud running back? Like, I mean, you talk about a guy that can put a team on his back. Now he's got that quarterback. Like, they have a chance to really sneak up. Maybe I should have made them my sleeper team, but the fact that they're not even in the top 25 is like, you've got to be underrating them going into the season. They're the most underrated team going in.
And a popular pick, right?
What's that?
As a result, I think they're a popular pick to make the playoff from the G5.
Okay.
My most underrated team, I thought you guys would know where I was going with this. I'm going with Iowa. So preseason.
They already got suspensions.
Oh, just one game for a couple
we find a way to do this every year. How does Iowa become a focal point of this show? Like, I feel like you guys just be trolling at this point.
Hey, listen, I don't make the rankings. I just answer the questions. Preseason number 25.
I'll get him a shirt that says that.
But they're coming off a 10-win season, all right? And they were the Big Ten West Division champs. But legitimately, there is reason for optimism. They get so much hate for their offense, understandably, as like the worst offense in Division I. But they had the best D in the country last year, and they returned 9 starters from last year's team. Speaking about the offense, they got a new O coordinator, Tim Lester, who comes in with some NFL experience, most recently with the Packers, and he's going to mold the offense to, be less maybe conventional pro style with the tight ends and the fullbacks, and get a little bit more like college game looks in there with more motions and shifts and more RPOs and things like that. They got Cade McNamara coming back after his ACL injury last season. And they've got great O-line play, great tight end group, and a bunch of proven running backs. So they can continue to like lean on the run game and set up play action and RPOs and things like that. And then finally, they have a good schedule and it sets up well with their favor. And their only ranked opponent as of right now, preseason rankings, is Ohio State. So they could, be the favorites in a lot of other games.
So, Coach, I was going to say,
see the day.
Coach, I was going to say,
I see the day when we're talking about Iowa and having like a modern offense, but here we are.
Coach, I was going to ask you, are you not concerned with the influx of Pac-12 teams coming into the Big Ten, maybe making it more challenging with Washington and Oregon? But it sounds like you looked at their schedule pretty in depth and you feel like there won't be as many roadblocks as potentially there could have been based on basically who they're scheduled to play.
Exactly.
Got it.
All right. Look, I'm gonna go against you, Coach. I'm not saying this pick will work out, but I'm gonna disagree with you. I think the team is Texas A&M. Like, we forget how much talent has gone to Texas A&M over the years in these ridiculously rated classes. Like, it ain't like there's a bunch of scrubs playing at A&M. It's just distractions. Jimbo Fisher's gone. Like, that's a big weight off of that program. I felt like his battle with the boosters in that program kind of took center stage, and it basically made the players not want to be there. And you can tell that by the way they said things, by the way people transferred. But now that distraction is gone, like, that talent is still there. They got a QB1 already, and you already mentioned how good the coach was. He did good things at Duke. Like, I think this could be a sleeping giant. Like, they've already played in the SEC, so they're not going to have to deal with Don's whole, you got to get acclimated to the new way of playing and style and all that stuff. They've done it. Losing to us is not a good, indicator of future success, but they're like us in a way. If like everything isn't going well, they just don't play well. But I think Jimbo being gone and maybe some of that talent that was highly recruited starts to come around and wants to play, I think Texas A&M could be a sleeping giant. So they're my most underrated team just because I think they have the tools in place to do it. All right. Sleeper team. Don, you always going to get this wrong, so I don't want to hear you first. Coach, you always nail this pick. Sleeper team. Guide us in the right direction so I can win some money. I mean, so people know who to.
Wow. See, he admits he bets, Coach. He admits he bets.
I never say I bet.
You always did. I don't have the money for it, but you do.
I don't have the money. I told you.
You obviously do. You obviously
Coach,
do.
Sleeper team.
Well, I'm going to go with one of the local teams for me around here, and I'm going with Virginia Tech Hokies. So they finished on a hot streak at the end of last season, winning 5 out of their last 7, and a nice bowl win as well. And they're entering year 3 in the Brent Pry era, and I think he's got something good going on. They bring back a bunch of key pieces on both sides of the ball, highlighted by QB Kyron Drones, who was a big part of that hot finish that they had last year. Their running back Tootin's a good player as well, and then several veteran receivers. And, their schedule sets up fairly favorably, and a lot of people think that they could be 4-0 before a conference showdown with your Hurricanes in the Orange Bowl at the end of September. So I think Virginia Tech from the ACC is my sleeper team this season.
Mm. Well, do you remember who I had last year, JT? I feel like I'm picking the same team again. Do you remember?
Nah, you must know. The fact that you brought it up, you must be proud of it. So why don't you go ahead and tell us?
I feel like I'm doing this 2 years in a row, but I still feel like this team gets no shine. So I'm going to go back. I think maybe not. Maybe it's the first time I picked them, but I'm going to go with the Liberty Flames. Vegas odds.
Yeah, you've picked them before.
Has them over under 10.5. 10.5. That's incredible. I mean, they were 13-1 last year. They lost to Oregon. Now they did get blown out, but listen, another name to remember. I talked about Ashton Genty. Here's another name. Caden Salter, like 32 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions last year. He's the quarterback of Liberty. He stayed there. He did not transfer out, which is a big win for Liberty. And I think they can do it again. No one's still talking about them. Can they sneak in backdoor to the playoffs? We'll see.
I will say this, man. Liberty. So Don, we're trying to get him to play more video games. So shout out to College Football 25. Just came out trying to get Don.
Don't got time for that. I don't got time for that.
Yeah, you will. You do got time. I will say the college football playoff is obviously in that game. Liberty is one of the first teams that you start to see in a dynasty as one of those weird teams that starts consistently making the playoffs. So you might be onto something. See, I'm giving you credit, man.
Okay, I appreciate that. I feel better. I feel better about my pick now.
Don't feel too good. But anyway, my sleeper team, I'm gonna say, I'm going left field. I'm gonna say Fresno State, just because I think they got some things working there. One, the quarterback, Mikey Keene, he's got hella experience, so I think that's good. But their defense has 2 studs. The one kid from USC, Corey Foreman, I think he was a top 3 recruit at one point when he went to USC. They got him. They got the other linebacker, Malachi Langley. Like, I like their team. And Fresno State has always historically been one of those teams where they can beat the marquee teams like anywhere, anytime. It's like usually like a 50-50 matchup. They play them tough. But the only problem is they usually put too many of those teams on their schedule. So if they win, it don't matter. The record is not good enough for them to maybe, crash a BCS bowl or, make a college football playoff. But this year is not the case. They play one tough game, in my opinion. That's the first game. They play Michigan first at the Big House. And then the rest of their games, I think they can win them all if you look at their schedule. So what if Fresno State pulls the Appalachian State and wins at Michigan? Like, this team could legit be undefeated. So I'm going with them. Like, this pick might look bad after week 1, but if they hang tough or win, hey, look, this is going to be like my Utah pick, and you guys are going to be hating on me for it.
Coach Cassidy, I was just about to say, Coach Cassidy, you know who I'm rooting for in that Michigan-Fresno State game.
I know who I'm rooting for. Just because
Go Big Blue. Go Big Blue. I don't want to have to hear this guy for the next 16 weeks on the show.
Because I don't take the easy way out and pick Liberty every year. I actually go out and put my neck on the line.
How is that taking the easy way? Liberty, if you ask most people,
Liberty don't play anybody. They can get 10 wins in their sleep, and
if you ask most people in this country, what is a university, Fresno State or Liberty? They would say, "I've heard of Fresno State, never heard of Liberty." Like,
and the fact that you're saying most people in this country are using that as your argument, you're cheating. All right, so let's go to the next one. Team that will disappoint. Coach, who is that team for you?
All right, so for my criteria. For this question, I'm looking at like preseason expectation based upon where I think the team will end up.
I swear sometimes Coach Cassidy's an attorney, because like he sets up, he needs to define what the criteria is, and then he's going to explain the team. He's going to give his opinion,
just been hanging around
then explain how it fits into that criteria.
That is Don Playbook 101. That is stuff that you do. So if you want to blame somebody, blame yourself. See, you rub it off on people.
Nah.
All right. So the team that will disappoint, you guys can determine your own criteria. Mine has been determined. I'm going with Ole Miss. They had such a busy offseason where they were getting a ton of publicity for all the work that they did in the transfer portal. And they did bring in a ton of talent. And so they've upgraded their roster incredibly. Obviously, Lane Kiffin is a, dynamic play caller, big personality as a coach. And they've got a favorable schedule, but they've got this back-to-back games against conference opponents with a bye week in between against Oklahoma and LSU. And I think LSU and Oklahoma are going to be with Ole Miss in that little third tier on the bubble from the SEC. And so depending on how they do against those two opponents, I think might determine whether or not they get into the playoff. And obviously they bring back Jackson Dart. And so there's a lot of hope there. But questions remain on the O-line, and they lost Judkins to Ohio State. And I just think, with that stretch, they might go 1-1 or 0-2 and be on the outside looking in when the 12th team playoff is announced. And so the faithful fans in the Grove will be heartbroken at the end of the year.
That's a good one. They're getting a lot of hype.
I'm glad I took them off my list because I had Ole Miss for exact same reasons that you did. Like, Judkins is a big loss. Like, the fact that he went to another program where they already had like a first round running back in-house, like, that's a big loss. Like, him not being there does affect Jackson Dart, in my opinion. Like, because you don't have that guy to rely on. And then also it's Lane Kiffin. Like, Lane Kiffin is that guy where, like, it looks great going up the mountain, but he never quite gets to the ceiling that you think that he's going to get there by the way he runs his mouth. And, like, this is the year he got to show, like, can you be at least a fraction of what Nick Saban was? Can you win? I don't think he can. So I agree with you. I think they are going to disappoint.
I was thinking about picking them too, so that's a really good pick, Coach Cassidy. And I had the same criteria as you did, and I'm going to go with a different team in the SEC, but I'm going to stick in that conference. They're getting a lot of hype based off of last year, and this is a program that hasn't done anything since I can remember. In fact, they've only finished the AP Top 10 in back-to-back seasons. They haven't done that since 1968, 1969. And they're getting what? Missouri Tigers.
Like 10 years old? So you've seen this. So what's the team?
I know, Missouri Tigers. The Missouri Tigers. Your team with your wide receiver on it, which I'll get to in a second.
Hey, look, man, we're not going to turn this whole show into you trying to beat down my predictions in the past that have been correct.
So
you better not say anything bad about Luther Burden III.
I think most people have them in the top 10, have Missouri preseason top 10. And it's like, I get it based off of last year, but again, let's pump the brakes on a program that hasn't done this consistently in over 55 years. Like, let's see it first. And listen, they're still in the SEC, right, JT? I'm going to give you the answer to the question by asking questions. They're still in the SEC, right? Yup.
They've been there.
SEC has added teams. Yup. They're going to play a couple other top 10 teams. Yes. So what makes you believe that they're not going to disappoint? Because I know they had a good year last year, but this is the thing. Luther's numbers, JT's wide receiver over in Missouri, he went over. You really want to bash Luther this bad? He went over 100 yards just once after October 7th. And you know what that usually means when you get into October? Means a lot of conference play. They now have film on you. The defenses are going to game plan around you. And it's your conference, tougher games. So, I mean, and they lost the All-American running back, Cody Schrader. So you've lost a big part of your offense, and now you're relying on a guy that had just one game over 100 yards. So either teams are game planning to stop him and someone else has to step up, which who is that going to be? Or when competition got tough, the Missouri offense, in particular Luther, couldn't step it up. So I'd be really worried, and I can see them being a big disappointment because there is a lot of hype going to Missouri, and this is not a football blue blood. And sometimes when that happens, that's when they fail. It's the teams that don't get hype that all of a sudden sneak up on you when they're not the blue bloods. But they're reminding me a lot of Miami, a lot of Ole Miss, teams that we've been talking about throughout the show. Convince me otherwise. I'm willing to listen because I don't want to hate on Missouri.
This ain't got nothing to do with Missouri. This is just you. You just want to talk shit about Luther Burden.
You want to
talk shit about Luther Burden, and you're gonna be scrambling to trade up to draft him in your dynasty rookie draft next year. Like, remember this tape. Like, this is about Luther. This is not about Missouri. I saw where this was going from the beginning. But, I mean, I can kind of agree with you because I was skeptical about them last year, and they surprised. So, for them to do it back-to-back, they will have to have gotten over a hump that we have not seen them do since, like, you were born in the 60s, since you were a child. So we haven't seen them do it in ages. I'm going to go with the easy answer. Like, this is low-hanging fruit. It's Michigan. Like, I love Sharon Moore, but they went undefeated last year, won a national championship. They lost J.J. McCarthy as a first-round quarterback, maybe one of the best running backs they've ever had in Blake Corum. He's probably one of their top running backs of all time. And they lose arguably their best coach in program history. Like, you're telling me you lose all that at the same time and you went undefeated last year and lose a bunch of guys, and we're just expecting you to just do it again? I'm sorry. We only afford that kind of cachet to Georgia and Alabama, and Michigan is not there. Like, we've seen them get over the hump of beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten, but they're not that cachet where it's like, no matter who they roll out there, they got a chance to win it all and go undefeated. So I got to see it from them before I start putting them in that Georgia-Alabama category. So for me, that's going to be the team that's going to disappoint, just because they're not going to be what they were last year.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think they suffer as a result of their quarterback situation, and they might be able to beat Penn State by running the ball 30 times in a row, but I don't know if they can do that with Ohio State. But
it's
a perfect transition. What you got to argue about?
It is not, because I always got to argue against you. You think you're always right. You're going to sit back.
I did not. I just said my answer.
Give the $1 million answer. But
Coach,
we talk about disappointment,
just existing just bothers him.
When we talk about disappointment, though, is that going to be a disappointment? Like, everyone knows they lost Harbaugh. Everyone knows their quarterback went top 10, top 12. Like, they lost. Blake Corum is gone. Like,
Michigan, they're a top 3 team.
Ohio State preseason. Ohio State's in front of them. Oregon is in front of them. Right there, they're number 3 minimum. And then we have the true college football expert on our show who says Iowa. I mean, so
he always says Iowa.
Disappointed. Who's going to be disappointed when Michigan loses in the first 6 games? Like, that's
going to be a major disappointment. What are you talking about?
No one including
they have been better than Ohio State for the past 4 years.
Vegas doesn't even have them repeating as the favorite.
That's because Vegas be rigging stuff. I'm telling you, like, they're going to disappoint.
All right,
they won it all last year.
I made my point. So let's go to the real prediction segment here. Player predictions. This is really where it gets fun for the fans and listeners at home. While yes, it is predictions, this is really where you get to learn and understand what to expect, who to look out for in the college football season. So we always say, when you come listen to these preview shows, it truly gets you ready for the whole season, because when we got an expert like Coach Cassidy, he's going to do his research, dig deep, and give you the true players to watch out for besides just on the surface. So, Coach Cassidy, got to start with you. Top 3 players going into the season, in your opinion.
Well, I'm going to stay away from the quarterbacks because we'll talk about them during the Heisman segment. So I'm going with non-signal callers here.
Okay, interesting.
And we got to throw a shout out to the running backs. So we'll start with Ollie Gordon II from Oklahoma State. He put up incredible numbers last year as a sophomore and returns to Stillwater with even higher expectations for this season. Last year, I think he had 14 runs with over 30 yards. So he's just like a very explosive runner. He's got great shift. He's very shifty. And so a lot of like explosive plays from him. And he really gets the Cowboys going. I think he's going to have a great year. Are we each doing one, or am I doing all 3?
Give us all 3.
Go all 3. Go all 3.
My second pick is going to be wide receiver Tet McMillan from Arizona. He's a gifted athlete. He's 6'5". He's really rangy. He's got great ball skills and had an excellent season last year. He's been mentioned in some preseason All-American teams as well for this year. I would encourage all the fans to go out and watch some of his highlights. He's fun to watch. And he and his best friend / high school teammate / QB from Arizona, Noah Fafita, elected to stay at Arizona even after head coach Jed Fish left last offseason for Washington. And I think that chemistry that they have acquired is going to help propel him to another fantastic season. And then got to throw the defensive bone. So I'll give you a defensive player to look out for as well. I'll leave Harold Perkins for one of you guys, and I'll go with Danny Stutzman, the linebacker from Oklahoma. So he's coming off 2 consecutive 100-plus tackle seasons, quarterbacking the defense in Oklahoma for Brent Venables. Forced a bunch of fumbles and had a pick 6 last year. And so he's kind of the guy there. And, figures to have another great season for the Sooners. So those are 3 to watch.
All right, interesting. Hey, good names right off the bat. JT?
Before I go, I actually pulled this up. I found it. I got to give us props. We basically picked the same group of 4 or 5 guys last year, and they all hit. It was Caleb, Marv, Jared Verse, and Brock Bowers, and Blake Corum. That was the list, the 5 players that got chosen between the 3 of us. So these top players worked out last year. So good job, guys. Now, this probably ain't going to work out as much for me this year because I don't give a damn what Don says. So my top 3 players, you're right, Coach. I got to give somebody on the defensive side of the ball love first. Travis Hunter. It's got to be him. Like, he's the best defensive prospect in the country. He's probably going to be the top drafted one. We saw what that team looks like when he's not on the field. Like, they're a 4-win team. When he's on there, like, they could crash the playoffs. So I'm going to go Travis Hunter. Number 2, I agree with you, Ollie Gordon, just because of what he did last year, coming out of nowhere. And the crazy thing was, I think he didn't even start for like the first 4 games of the season. And then he did that like the rest of the way. Like 6'2", 200+ pounds, speed, workhorse, can catch the ball. I mean, he's a dog. He'll probably be in the NFL next year. So I definitely got him in my top 3. And then the third player, I don't give a damn what Don says. It is Luther Burden III. And I've been talking about him since he was a freshman. Don hates it because the experts outside of our show agree with me too. They see the process too. He's gonna be a stud, a first-round draft pick. You saw what he did for Missouri last year. They had a great season. He's just gonna continue to get better and prove you wrong and annoy the shit out of you. So Burden, top 3 player. Book it.
Well, this is what happens when you go. Sorry, go ahead, Coach Cass.
I was going to say, I saw a crazy stat about Travis Hunter doing my research today. He played over 1,000 snaps last year, even missing 3 games, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And Deion does not recruit. That's what that shows.
This is the problem with going after the expert and going after someone else, going after 2 people.
Wow, someone else. I'm just somebody who used to know.
Yep.
Damn, this better be good. So go ahead, spit them out. What you got?
Well, I'm going Ollie Gordon. Coach Cassidy mentioned how explosive he is. He had 46 explosive plays last year. And then on top of that, 3.8 yards per carry after contact. So this is a guy that can do it multiple ways. It's got to be Ollie Gordon. And JT, you're right. Coach Cassidy, I'm sorry to say this. You got to have Travis Hunter on the list. I mean, come on. The guy plays both ways, played over 1,000 snaps, missed games. He had 7 games of over 100 receiving yards. And again, he missed 3 or 4 games in there. He can play, press coverage. He can play zone on the defensive end. Like, he just does it all. I mean, his energy, it's unreal. And then you got to give love to the O-lineman. I mean, you got to give love to the O-lineman because that's where it all starts, right? They're going to keep the quarterback upright. They're going to make holes for Ollie Gordon. It's Will Campbell, O-lineman tackle out of LSU. And not 1 sack allowed by him last year. And he's only a junior. So he's only going to get
Pittsburgh Steeler. He's going to be a Steeler. You're going to be beating the drum for them to
draft
him
I would
all
love
year.
that. The thing is, we drafted tackles in
Manica
back-to-back
2.0.
years. I don't know if we'll go with 3 tackles, and he's only a junior. So I expect him to get better. He's at LSU. He's going to go against a lot of great competition, and I expect his game to rise to the occasion. We got to give that love to the O-lineman. So, Coach Cassidy, under the radar player.
All right, so continuing with my little theme of Blacksburg, I'm going to go with wide receiver from Virginia Tech, Jalen Lane. Last year in his first season with the Hokies after transferring from Middle Tennessee, he had a team-high catches, 41 receptions, and over 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's a little undersized. I think he's about like 5'9", but he can fly with sub 4.4 speed. And NFL execs project him to be a top 3-round pick. And he looks to build on what he did last year, continuing to build comfort and chemistry with QB Kyron Drones. So I'm looking to see a great season from Jalen Lane.
All right, nice. JT?
All right, man. I'm going to take a walk on the wild side because technically this guy really didn't do much last year, but I think it was because of who he was playing behind. But I'm sorry, man. Anytime you are 6'5", 240 pounds and run a 4.3 40, my interest is piqued. Nick Harbor, sophomore wide receiver, South Carolina. Freak of nature. Like, Don, you took out the freak portion of the show this year where we were talking about, like, who's, like, the freakiest athlete. It's him. And we saw what your boy, who you loved, Xavier Leggett, did in this offense last year. He sort of kind of came out of nowhere, blew up, big, fast, physical receiver. And Harbor is like him on roids with the Lamborghini engine strapped to his back. Like, this is like Calvin Johnson type of athleticism and size. So I'm excited to see what this kid who's only a sophomore, what he can do. Like, he's either gonna do something at South Carolina or he'll be in the transfer portal. He'll go to a school where they can actually use him correctly. But that's my guy that I'm looking at this year for that category.
All right, we'll see. We'll see. Have you guys heard of the name Omarion Hampton? Do you know who that is?
The running back for North Carolina.
Yes.
How is he under the radar?
He is under the radar because he plays at North Carolina. He played behind Drake May.
Because your glasses are low, man. You can't see. Everybody knows who that is.
No, that not everybody. Our college football expert knows it because he's the college football expert. He had over 1,500 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns, and he was playing behind Drake May's offense. Now with Drake May gone,
the guy
I
had
think
1,500 yards and 16 touchdowns, and he's under the radar.
He's under the radar.
He didn't do PR person apparently.
He is under the radar. If you go look, ask any average college football fan, they will not know who that is. They'll know some of the other guys, but they will not know who that is. I'm just saying, watch him because he's sneaky good. But
I watched him last year.
He's unheard. He's unheard. The reason why I say under the radar is because he played behind Drake May, right? And then there was all the talk with Walker, the transfer coming in. Like, he was, the third offensive name that they would always bring up. So that to me is under the radar. He is now the guy.
You really don't want to lose these. I see what's going on. We're reframing what these categories mean so he can look good.
So, Coach Cassidy, just ignore the nonsense being spoken by my co-host. Breakout star, let us know who to truly look out for here.
All right. Well, I hope our buddy Travis is watching. I'm going with Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee, the QB. Sorry if I mispronounced his last name there. And he sort of burst onto the scene in the bowl game last year against Iowa. And had, I think, 3 rushing touchdowns. He was a top recruit out of California. And, the Tennessee offense is just so suited to making a star, so, especially like the quarterback and the receiver position, the way they play that up-tempo game and they take all those shots. They got so many explosive plays. And he's just built to fit right in. He's 6'6", a dynamic athlete. He's got incredible arm talent, but also has that like escapability and great footwork to beat defenses with his legs on scramble plays and design runs. So I'm really excited to see what he can do this upcoming season. And some people even have him as a sleeper Heisman pick. So we'll see if you guys weave him in there later in the show.
We'll see. We'll see.
Top
good teaser.
Look at the Heisman, which is insane.
Look at our expert. He is so good that he even can do a teaser for later on the show to keep people listening to see who we do the high. That's great. We don't even pay him for the teaser part. That's incredible. JT, he should take your job.
Hey, you the one that's on the fence. You're on the clock.
Now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. Go, please.
Well, for somebody that picked the breakout star last year and that dude ended up transferring, I don't think you should be talking in this category. But anyway, I'm going to go with a guy that I wanted to pick him last year as the freshman impact, and I didn't, and I regretted it instantly after the first game. And he flashed last year as a freshman. I think he made All-American as a kick returner, but I'm going with Zachariah Branch, sophomore wide receiver for USC, man. Like, he might be the fastest player in the country, and we know what he can do on the field when he has the ball in his hand. So you take that guy and you say, look, we're going to make him the focal point in the Lincoln Riley offense. Sign me up. Sky's the limit, man. I think this kid's going to break out, man. you forget elite 5-star recruit, and we've already seen what kind of talent he has. Like, I just think he's going to be the next superstar in college football. Zachariah Branch, book it.
So we got David Burns writing to us, watching from Cedar Hill, Texas. David, thank you for watching and listening and commenting. A lot of good football down in Texas, high school and college. We talked about a couple of the college programs there already. My breakout star, I'm going to go with Oscar Delp, tight end, University of Georgia. He only had about 290 receiving yards last year, but half of those yards came after the catch. And that's kind of the tradition at Georgia, right? They got Brock Bowers, Darnell Washington. We know how the big physical tight ends play.
Darnell Washington's name on this show.
How they play at Georgia, the big physical tight ends, when you got a quarterback like Carson Beck. I mean, throwing to him, you got to love that. So I expect him to be that breakout star, that tight end that we're talking about in college football. Remember the name, Oscar Delp. So let's go to the flip side.
Before you move on, last year, just real quick, Don, you picked KJ Jefferson. Coach, you picked Cade Klubnik from Clemson, and then yours truly picked Luther Burden as the breakout player.
So listen, if you know me well enough, I'm always ahead of the curve. I'm 1 year ahead. KJ did transfer. And listen, you go look at his odds for Heisman. He's like top 10, top 12. I'm just saying.
They know other quarterbacks.
I'm just saying. So
Nico played one game. He's top 8 odds.
Let's go to the flip side, Coach Cassidy. Player that will disappoint / not live up to expectations.
Yes, sir. I hate to say it. And you guys are going to love this one, but I'm going to go with Florida State's own DJ Uiagalelei.
Ooh, okay.
And here's why. So expectations are high for the Seminoles. And they're, depending on where you look, a preseason favorite to win the ACC and lock up a spot in the playoffs after narrowly missing last year, as we all know, after the Jordan Travis injury. And so DJ comes in to fill those big shoes of Jordan Travis's. He had 1 year at Oregon State, as most of your viewers probably know, after his time at Clemson. And Florida State, while they're bringing back a lot on the O-line and in the running back room, they're not that deep this year at wide receiver. So he's not going to have help there as much as he may like, unfortunately. So I think that's going to put a little bit of pressure on him. And I think, like last year at Oregon State, the scheme with all those like tight ends and running backs, and they just pounded the football, played to his strengths. And I'm not sure the scheme at Florida State is going to be as comfortable for him, and maybe not play to his strengths. And so I think it's going to be a harder transition for him. And I think for that reason, and considering the pressure and the expectations, he's going to underwhelm. And so I hope you enjoyed that, Canes fans.
Coach Cassidy, I'm going to jump in here because I've got a Florida State guy that I don't think is going to live up the expectations. So let's just jump on Florida State here. Marvin Jones Jr., the transfer from Georgia.
Because he left Georgia.
I think he'll play well. Yes, in a way, he reminds me some of Tyreek Stevenson, right? All this hype coming out, goes to Georgia. Does he really play well? How much does he see the field? Now he's getting out of there, going back home. Will he play well? Yeah, but I don't think he's going to live up to the hype that he had coming out of high school, right? I mean, they were talking about him going to Florida State right away and being an impact player had he gone there initially. Instead goes to Georgia. He can't crack the depth chart. And, they were expecting him to get in there and play, meaning at Florida State, but they lost a lot of talent on that defensive line to the NFL. And I just don't know if he can come in and keep that baton going. Is he as good as Jared Verse? I don't know. I don't think so. So I think that's where Florida State people are thinking, hey, we brought Jared Verse in from Alabama via the portal. We had 2 guys get drafted in the NFL. We'll be all right. We'll reload. Oh, we get a portal guy out of Marvin Jones Jr. Meanwhile, he's a legacy guy there too. And he was a 4 or 5-star recruit coming out of high school who was looking at Florida State, a 5-star. So they're expecting him to come in and fill those shoes. And it's not that easy. especially this guy hasn't done it yet. It's Jared Verse did it at Albany. I don't care even if it was Albany. He showed he can do it against other college players. Do we see that in Marvin Jones Jr.? I don't know yet. So that's why I think he'll be fine, but he's not going to live up to that hype. There's a lot of hype for him in like Coach Cassidy said, and we've talked about on the show, for that Florida State team. So JT.
See, now you jinxed it, because any edge defender that FSU has brought in over the years out of obscurity, they've dominated and then gone high in the first round of the draft. So I think he'll be fine. He's a good player. Coach, I agree with you. I had DJU too, just because he's been in college too long. Like, he was a #1 overall recruit, I believe, and it's not like Clemson didn't have talent coaches to surround him. Like, what are his strengths? Like, if you can't win at Clemson and you get benched as a recruit that's that highly rated, it's just never going to happen for you. Like, and I agree with you. I think, Don, you said it. There's no Keon Coleman. There's no Johnny Wilson. There's no Trey Benson. Those are major, major talented players that are not going to be there to show us how bad DJU really is. So I do think it's going to be him, because I think people think, oh, you hear the name, well, like, he's at least got to be as good as Travis was. But it's like, no, like, that team is not as good as it was last year. They're going to be relying on DJU to do way more than he's accustomed to doing in the past. So I think he'll be the one that disappoints. So I'll go over these three last year. Don, you take the cake. Player to disappoint, Drake May. Coach, you had Tua's little brother from Maryland, and then I had Cam Rising, the quarterback from Utah. So those are our picks last year in this category.
I guess we didn't do too bad there, right? We didn't do too bad, did we?
Drake May was high first round pick, man. Just smooth past that.
All right, let's go to the next question. Next question, Coach Cassidy, impact freshman.
All right, so I think news this week was that Dylan Raiola was named starting quarterback at Nebraska, and so he is a true freshman. So I think you're a true freshman. You're starting at a Power 5 blue blood. Hard to go against that, especially at the quarterback position. And he was like a 5-star recruit when had offers from all the other blue bloods and chose Nebraska. His father played there. His uncle's on staff there. And so there's a bunch of excitement for the Cornhuskers this year in the second year under Matt Rule. And Matt Rule has had a great deal of success in his second years at previous college football stops. So we'll see how Riola is able to handle the pressure and see if he can have some early success at the beginning of his freshman year.
I like that pick. I did see that. Yep, was named starter. It's going to be exciting. I mean, it is a exciting time for Nebraska fans again. So we'll see if he can turn that program around. A lot of expectations there. A lot of expectations now that he's been named starter. JT, impact freshman.
Yeah, it's hard to follow up that pick, man, because you forget he was committed to Georgia for a while. So it's not like, oh, he's just some overrated kid going to Nebraska. Like, nah, he chose that route. Like, he could easily be at Georgia right now pushing Carson Beck for a starting job. So I like that pick. I hate this team, and I hate this. I like the player. I think
Tell him how you really feel.
But he's just got so many things that trigger me that he's connected to. Like, he plays for his college team that I hate. He played for a high school that I definitely don't like. But every time I see a highlight of this guy on social media, they're like, he's the next Randy Moss. Like, I don't know if their PR team is just setting up the camera that way, but it's like, he's the only player on the team I see in the offseason making plays. And it's Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver from Ohio State. Like, it's gotta be him, man. Like, everything I see tells me he's going to be a superstar. #1 overall recruit. And like I said, the high school he played at, Chaminade, rivals of our high school. We're not going to talk about that on this show. But you've seen wide receivers that go to Ohio State. Like, Ohio State is like the Pittsburgh Steelers of college football when it comes to developing wide receivers. And, like, if any school is going to get the max potential out of their elite wide receiver recruits, it's Ohio State. And they make sure their players at receiver ball out early, too. We see it. JSN as a freshman. Marvin Harrison was getting work early on. Like, these guys that go to Ohio State and play receiver, they play early and they play well. So by all the ratings, he's the best one on all of them. So I'm excited to see what he does as a freshman, but I think it's going to be him. I think he's going to be the top freshman.
That's a good pick. And I keep hearing that he's like as good as the hype, which is kind of scary.
Every clip I see is just him just embarrassing some DB that's been starting for 3 years. That's like all Big Ten. I'm like, damn, is he really this good, or they're just hyping him up? But I've seen the high school clips too. Like he's a beast, and I think he's the real deal.
Hey, someone got to fill in for the production that now that Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone, right? Someone's got to catch the 1300.
They've had enough time.
The 1300. Listen, this is the tough part in this segment going third, because I had Raiola first, then Jeremiah Smith Jr. Good thing I wrote a third one down, because I'd have nothing to say for this answer.
You ain't have them two. Just go with your third. Who's your third?
I did, but I'm going to go with a local DC guy, DMV guy, who's going to be an impact freshman, Dylan Stewart. He's going to South Carolina. They were last. They were tied for last, meaning South Carolina, in the SEC last year in sacks, and along with Vanderbilt. He can turn that around. He can turn that ranking around, I think, immediately as that athletic edge rusher. So remember the name, Dylan Stewart. I think one day he'll be in a Pittsburgh Steeler uniform as well, taking over for TJ Watt on the other side once.
Damn, you just placing all this pressure on this dude. So, he didn't ask for all that.
He's the real deal. All right.
I think he was a two-time first team All-Met in DC, according to, in the Washington Post. He's pretty special player.
Out of Friendship High School, I believe, collegiate Friendship. Just down the road from the DC studios, by the way. All right, so
glad nobody took the easy road out of this question, because the obvious answer is your boy Nico, because technically he's still a freshman, right? He's a redshirt.
He's a redshirt. He's a redshirt.
So it's got to be true freshman.
I don't know.
That's the way. Coach Cassidy, how did you define that question?
I went with true freshman, but
there we go. It was true freshman, JT. So Nico is not eligible. Yep, he's not eligible. All right. So Coach Cassidy, top QB transfer. This is an easy one. There's only one answer.
It's only one guy. It's only one person.
Don't mess it up.
It's only one guy. It's not the other guy. It's only one guy.
Does he play at Notre Dame?
Oh
man, mute it. Cut his mic.
Don't you worry. I picked Dylan.
He's not getting an invite next year. Not getting an invite.
No,
go ahead. We'll listen to your answer anyway.
Let me tell you about Dylan Gabriel. So I was watching some of this like preseason stuff behind the scenes. They're interviewing all the players, and I guess Dylan Gabriel drives a minivan. And so in the era of NIL, when everybody's got the Trackhawks and the Lamborghinis, he's got a minivan. And the sole purpose is so he can pick up all his wide receivers and they can go work out together. And so, the guys at Oregon were talking about what a great job he did coming in as a transfer and building chemistry with his wide receiving core. And they went on a little retreat in Southern Oregon and, hung out and threw balls and got extra work in. And I think, that shows both his commitment to his teammates, but also the intangibles. And I think, obviously he's got great experience, played at Oklahoma and, won huge games for them. And he's moving into a loaded roster at Oregon. So I think he, top 3 program, top 3 team or what have you. He's the guy.
He'll definitely be, an impact player, a lot of expectations. So, that is a fine answer, but not quite the correct answer. Let's see if JT can get the correct answer.
Man, first of all, I'm not falling for that old Russell Wilson routine. He seemed like he's doing the Russell Wilson thing. The team will hate him by week 5. Dylan's a good player. I'm not going to diss him. Coach, this was a layup. This is easy, and I feel like you're just doing this out of spite. There's only one answer. It's Cam Ward. You could have Dylan Gabriel. Like, I love it. I love this situation. Well, you forget, Cam Ward was basically in the NFL draft until I don't know what mafia ties Miami pulled to get him out of the draft. But they said, look, no, you need to come to Coral Gables first.
I can almost guarantee, without knowing for sure, I can almost guarantee Cam Ward, he not driving a minivan in South Beach.
He not.
Is anyone? Good answer.
Just
That's
us.
True. Good question.
Yeah. But no, it's Cam Ward. Like I said, he was basically in the NFL draft, and then he decided to transfer to Miami. You forget, like, he was basically a Heisman candidate at times last year when he played. So I love it. Like, when they said he was coming to Miami, I was like, there's just no way. We never get this lucky. But yeah, he is the top quarterback transfer just because I've seen him do it before with less. I think he'll have more in Miami. So I'm excited. I think it's him.
Cam Ward, case open, case closed. It's him. Top transfer, non-QB, Coach Cassidy.
I had a little list here as well. But I'll go with another running back, Trevor Etienne. He's moving from Florida to conference rival Georgia. Obviously, we know how good Georgia is, and obviously Trevor, the younger brother of Travis, he's a fantastic player. And I think he's walking into a perfect situation there at Georgia, and I think he'll have a really big, quick impact for the Dogs' rushing attack.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I mean, it's going to be interesting now that he's at Georgia. Always interesting to see those SEC players go to another program within the SEC. JT, top non-QB transfer.
Oh, this is easy because I'm just going with the guy that I've already seen be a superstar. He's only a sophomore. It's Caleb Downs. Think about it. Like, he might have been the best defensive player on a Nick Saban defense as a freshman. Like, now he goes to Ohio State. Like, that's not even fair. Like, you know how special you have to be in that category where Saban's like, look, we're putting you out in the field. We're giving you a single-digit number. You're the guy on defense. Like, that's his baby. So it's got to be Caleb Downs, man. Dominant safety going to Ohio State from Alabama.
Yeah, I had Caleb Downs too. Not much more to say. 2023 SEC Freshman of the Year. So I'm going to go Caleb Downs.
I'll give you props. You did a lot better than you did last year because last year you picked DJU as your top transfer, man. Like, that was your top transfer.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, hold on though. All due respect, Oregon State was pretty good last year, right? Like,
they were good.
Yeah.
Was he good?
He was all right. I mean, I was looking up his stats today because as pick for most disappointing, and I think he threw like 49% on passes that went over 10 yards downfield. His overall completion percentage was like 57%. So he's all right.
It's tough in that Northwest weather.
We gotta push you down this list
Northwest weather. A lot of rain. It's windy.
But I will give you saving grace. We both picked Travis Hunter, so I think we did a good job there. I just went with the better quarterback. I went with Shador, and Coach, you had Sam Hartman, which I like.
Compare those numbers. Pull up DJ's numbers to Shador. I think
one of them's going to be a first-round draft pick, maybe top 5. The other, lucky to get a camp invite.
Hey, he has a long year ahead of him. He better play well. Things change fast in football. Don't forget that, JT. All right.
Well, I had Caleb Downs on my list as well, but I'll give the fans a third name. Isaiah Bond, wide receiver, who's now playing at Texas, who had been at Alabama.
Alabama. Yep.
He's going to go mesh well with yours in that Sarkisian attack and really help, continue the Longhorns' role here.
They'll probably make me look bad that I went against Texas this year. But, all right, so now we get to the real tough questions. Coach Cassidy, Heisman winner. Tell JT who he should go put his millions on in Vegas.
Well, we won big last year thanks to me, right?
Hey, we don't bet though. We don't bet.
Look, we should have. So we just gonna come out the gate. Look, you picked Jaden Daniels to win the Heisman, and he won the Heisman. I think this is the second time you've done this on this show where you properly predicted the Heisman winner.
That is crazy.
So honestly, you should be taking your own advice. You should be a millionaire by now. So you're not using your gifts that have been given to you.
No pressure. So obviously this is going to a quarterback. It's going to a quarterback at a top program. And so, you look at the quarterbacks with starting experience at the top programs and, the names are the names. But I'm not going to go with Will Howard. And he's the reason that Ohio State was not at the top of my top 5. You're
not sold, huh?
I'm not sold, and so I'm gonna go with the sleeper, and so I'll go with Nico from Tennessee as the sleeper pick using my winnings from last year.
Is advanced analytics.
I like that. All right, so JT, who you taking?
I went risky last year, so I picked JJ McCarthy last year. Don, you did a great job. Michael Penix, your only good call on this show last year.
He should have won it.
He should have, but he didn't.
He should.
I'm going Dillon Gabriel, man. Like you said it, great offense, great talent around him. But here's the kicker. I feel like we're going to get the best version of Dillon Gabriel because he's one of the only guys on this list that actually has a backup that can take his job and has the cachet as a talented recruit. Because you forget, Dante Moore from UCLA, who I'm heartbroken he didn't come to Miami because he should have, 5-star recruit, number 1 quarterback coming out of high school, also transferred to Oregon. So if Dillon doesn't have his stuff together early on with the expectations this team has, like he might get taken out of the game and you might turn over to Dante. So I think knowing you have that guy just waiting in the wings, I think you're going to get the best version of Dillon Gabriel. He's going to ball out, and I think the Heisman will go to him because of that.
Yeah, I think those are 2 good answers, and I think either one can win. I'm also going to go with a quarterback, but a different name. And we forget that. Listen, I know Alabama changed head coaches, or Nick Saban retired more so, and they brought in a new coach. They had to. I'm going Jalen Milroe. I mean, he finished the season strong last year. After, as JT talking about players that could get benched, he was benched for that South Florida game, and they saw how the offense went, and they changed real quick. And this is the thing. He's going to have, and we all know this, you got to keep the quarterback upright. He's going to have a monster O-line with the likes of Caden Proctor, Tyler Booker, and Parker Brailsford. I mean, those are 3 like very sound
like giant humans the way you read their names.
I mean, they are 3 really good offensive linemen. And this is the thing, Jalen Milroe can do it all. He can air it out, he can throw, and guess what? He can run. There were a couple games in there, at least one he had over 100 yards, and I think that can be the difference. And that he's at Alabama. Listen, like I think that's the great thing about playing for Alabama this year is you hear all these names, Oregon and Ohio State, even in their conference. Oh, Texas is coming in. Texas A&M got a new coach. Tennessee with the quarterback. Guess what? That's great. Alabama has got no pressure this year. You know, DeBoer is going to get those guys ready, and I think they're going to be there right till the end, and a lot of it's going to be Jalen Milroe, and he'll kind of have that Jaden Daniels year that Daniels had last year. And I
hate it, man. I think you might have nailed this. I think you might have nailed this pick because you sold me. I'm not going to change my pick, but I see the method, and I think what's going to help him is we don't know how he'll look in this new offense. It might be better suited for him than playing under Saban, and he's probably going to be the only quarterback that has the rushing numbers to back it up. And I feel like when you have the both rushing and the passing and you're winning games, like it's like a lock. We always see quarterbacks like that win it. So I don't want to get your hopes up, but I think you might have just nailed that pick. I think it might be him.
Don't jinx it. I didn't hear that. Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
It might be because what if he's actually better in this offense?
Next question. Let's go to the next question before you jinx it.
I think the new offense maybe works against him as much as it helps him. Frankly, he's great on those deep balls. He struggles a little bit on those intermediate balls. So we'll see how
he's offensive coordinator. See, he knows. He knows.
So
you're saying
you're wrong.
Go ahead.
No, you're saying that offensive system that Alabama will now play doesn't quite suit them as much as the Bama offense did last year, you think?
No, I think a lot of the vertical stuff will be all right because he throws a great deep ball. More just like the comfort, and you often hear about how long it takes quarterbacks to get comfortable in a new system. And, the first year is always difficult. And then like having that first year under their belt, the second year, they always gain that comfort level. So we'll see. I mean, he's a great kid. It'll be fun to watch him.
Now he's got me worried. See,
don't worry.
We should have went to the next question.
In college football, the game, so he might be doing something epic this year. So
I'm curious to see if Quinn Ewers can stay healthy if he's got a shot.
I mean, I would think. I would think he should have a shot if he stays healthy. So Power 5. Well, I should say Power Conference winners. Yeah, it's Power 4. So Power Conference winners. Coach Cassidy, read them off for us on your list.
All right, I'm going with Georgia, Oregon, and I'm actually going with Clemson over Florida State. Remember, Florida State won that fluky game in Clemson last year. Clemson goes to Tallahassee this year, and I kind of see the game playing out in a similar way where Clemson will pull off a win in Tallahassee, and then poise themselves to win the ACC. I don't know where your Canes will be. And then
finally, not on your list, I tell you that.
See how he throws that in? Wow.
Nobody asked you for all that, man.
And then well, we do know where they'll be. They'll be somewhere in the mix, but probably just outside. But
I thought he was gonna say at home.
And then I think
he ain't gonna be that bold this year.
To Don's point earlier in the show, moving conferences is a challenge. And I think the popular pick in the Big 12 is Utah. Utah's a fantastic program. They've got such continuity. Cam Rising's back. So, obviously a great pick, but they, to Don's point earlier, they're unfamiliar with a lot of these opponents. They haven't made these road trips. And so everything's new. And I think for that reason, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to win the Big 12.
All right. Hey, JT, this is really where you got to write it down because this is where you can make the money. This is really where you can make the money.
No, I know you already wrote it down, so I'll just text you for the answers.
All right. So who do you have? Make sure I don't, we kind of cross-reference.
Well, he stole all of our stuff. I mean, we got a lot of the same things. I'm gonna agree with you. I think I picked Oklahoma State too to win. I think they're set up for success, and I think that conference is kind of in flux. And they have experience, so I think they'll win. I think Ohio State wins their division, their conference. Georgia's the obvious pick for me in the SEC, and then you asked the question, and I'm gonna answer it for you. I know where Miami's gonna be. They're gonna be ACC champions. They're gonna be in Charlotte, hosting up the trophy, as we're the ACC champs for the first time since joining this godforsaken conference that I hate with my every fiber of my soul. We're gonna win it this year. So Miami is my pick to win the ACC.
Who's your Big Ten? Did you give a Big Ten? Did I miss it?
Yeah, Ohio State.
Oh, okay.
Don't be trying to write it down now.
I did. I mean, let me tell you something. There's a lot of Miami Hurricane bravado on this show right now, and it's either going to go really good or we're going to be embarrassed.
It'll be good or it'll be over by week 2. So that's the beauty of the Kings fan. We know early what the hell's going on.
Listen, by week 2, it may be done by 7:00 on Saturday, August 31st if we lose up in the swamp. So I'm going to go with Ohio State, loaded roster. And we forgot to talk about Chip Kelly now is there. So you add that too. So I think they're going to be the conference winners there. And listen, Ryan Day, you're on the hot seat. If you can't win now, you will never win at Ohio State. You will be the next John Cooper. So you got to get it done. I think it's going to be Alabama. Jalen Milroe, this is how you win the Heisman. Listen, we've seen this before where Florida Gators really good. All of a sudden, everyone rooting for Bama. Bama beats Tebow and company. All of a sudden, Bama becomes the team. Then everyone's sick of Bama. Georgia takes the throne from them. I think people are starting to get sick of Georgia because of how their players are acting. They're trying to three-peat, this and that. And I think people are sick. And Alabama, in my opinion, still has the best team, the best chance to be able to beat Georgia. And I think they do it. I think they win the conference. And then out of the Big 12, I'm going to go Kansas State. 2022 Kansas Gatorade Player of the Year, Avery Johnson going to take the helm from Will Howard. And that makes me feel better because if Coach Cassidy doesn't believe in Will Howard, then that means they're upgrading with Avery Johnson, and they won games with Will Howard. So I feel good. I think they can beat out Utah. They can beat out Kansas. They can beat out Oklahoma State. And then listen, the third best odds in the ACC, according to the MGM Sportsbook, at plus 400, only behind Florida State at plus 300, in Clemson plus 350. That tells me there's a very narrow margin between Florida State and Miami. So I'm going to go Miami to win the ACC. All right.
Real quick question. Are there any teams outside Clemson, Florida State, and Miami that can win the ACC?
Oh, yeah.
NC State.
NC State. You think they got a legit shot?
Yeah.
Hold on. SMU's in the ACC too, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's another team because they got Lashley.
They might have an outside shot.
I seen Lashley do it.
Yeah, but for SMU, what I would be worried about is I'd have to look at their schedule, but are they playing any of those games October, November up in the Northeast? Like, are they playing at Pitt? Are they playing Boston College? Yeah, like those can be some tough games for, SMU is going to try to probably throw it around. I'll tell you, you get one of those windy, cold days up in Chestnut Hill, BC will upset you. So, but yeah, I think NC State is definitely realistic. Listen, we've talked about it before, Coach Cassidy, where when a program in one sport has success, it kind of carries through the whole school, right? The whole athletic department. And that's happening with NC State, right? They made that great Cinderella run. And I think both men's and women's college basketball, they had a pretty good team last year in football. Like, I think that trend can continue here. So I would say NC State, and the fact that JT and I said it real quick makes me believe that they actually might have a legit shot outside of those three teams.
They always around.
I agree.
They're the annoying team.
And I think it's wide open, frankly.
Yeah, it is. No, it is. I do think Miami has positions itself, though. If they do what we expect them to do, if they play the way they're supposed to, they should be able to take it. But with Miami, they usually don't do what they're supposed to do. So
there's always a Georgia Tech situation lurking in the weeds to happen. So
yeah, real bad. All right, so Coach Cassidy, this may be a tough one, but who is that one team that makes the playoffs this year that has not made it previously when it was only the top four?
So this is an interesting question, and I actually don't think it's that tough, because when I went back and did my research, in the 10 years of 4-team format, only 15 teams made appearances in the playoffs, and 7 of those schools only made one trip. So there's a lot of good programs out there who never made the playoff.
Yeah.
And the decade was dominated by Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and Oklahoma. And so this year we're guaranteed to get a group of 5 team to make it. So automatically you've got a new team there, because now Cincinnati's in a power conference. And then, as we mentioned earlier, Boise State is like the hot pick to get that G5 nod. So let's throw them in there for one. And then, depending on what like projections you look at, you might have teams like Ole Miss, Utah, and Penn State all being like a second or a third, place team from their conference getting into the 12-team field. So I think there's going to be, a handful of programs getting to the playoff for the first time, which is going to make it fun and exciting.
So you went with like a list of potential teams.
Yeah, I guess.
Got it.
So
okay. That's fine. Yeah,
no,
that's fine. That is. I mean, that's good, right?
He gave
like
us the PFF data. I love it.
Hey, yep. He gave the definition and everything. No, I like that. That is completely fine. JT, what do you have?
Utah will get in. There you go.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, there we go.
He's rooting against you now.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna go with a team that has not been close to sniffing a playoff like ever since this whole playoff thing started. And they barely sniffed good bowl games. It's Miami. Like, Miami is that team that has not made it when there's been 4 teams. We have no shot to ever make it. But think about this. How often since we've been in the ACC that you can legit say that Miami might have the best quarterback, the best running back, the best group of wide receivers, and the best offensive line in the conference? Like, those statements would not be crazy. We legit might have the best at all, if not 4 or 5 of those positions. So it's got to be them. The only way that I think this season goes south is if Cristobal proves that he can't coach at like a Pee Wee level. Like, because this team is tailor-made to make a run. They have the experience. They have the talent. He's the only question mark that's standing in the way of us making the playoff. And I don't think he's that bad. So that's why I think that that's a team that hasn't made it before when there were 4 teams that could crash the party this year. I think it's Miami.
All right. Well, I looked at teams that would have made it other years by being in the top 12 that hadn't been in the top 4. And you look consistently, Coach Cassidy, you mentioned one of these teams. It's Penn State. They've been consistently in the top 12. Like, if you go back and look, like, they'd be number 7, number 10, number 11, number 12. And it was like they never truly got close to the top 4 because they lose to Michigan and Ohio State, or they beat 2 or
3 losses every year.
Yep, lose to the other. And it was like, I don't see why they can't be in the top 12 again, unless with the influx of Oregon and Washington really hurting them. But other than that, other than the committee not wanting to maybe put like 3 or 4 Big Ten teams in and 3 or 4 SEC teams in, I mean, Penn State should benefit from this, right?
Absolutely. And sorry to cut you off, but they're a
okay.
winner. They're a winner in getting rid of that East Division, right? So they don't always have to play Michigan and Ohio State anymore. So even though Oregon and Washington come in, divisions go away, and so they'll get more balance top to bottom in their schedule.
Right, and they're not always going to play every year. Oregon and Washington and one of the top teams. All right, so here we go. This is the tough one.
Wait a minute, real quick. I'm sorry to keep asking all these follow-up.
Okay.
How hot does Cristobal's seat get if Miami doesn't live up to these expectations that you guys are giving them?
Well, I think it depends on how the season
it depends
goes.
on
like,
if he has another moment like that Georgia Tech moment where it's like,
yeah,
you just can't do that,
right,
he'll be fired.
Right. And on top of that, like, how good are we? Because we went from 5-7 to 7-5 or 8-4 in the regular season, whatever it was. Like, if we get 9 wins, if we go 9-4, then I think he'll be okay. He just can't go 7-5 and have a Georgia Tech moment that should have been 8-4. Plus, do we lose 2 games because of that moment?
Yeah,
like,
we lost to North Carolina game because of that too.
Right. Like, I think we play Florida State. Well, we play Florida State. I don't know if we play Clemson, but do we beat Florida State? Because if we do, that's always a job saver. So I think it depends on how the season plays out. He's only his year 3 into an 8-year, $80 million contract or something like that.
And
so
we're not exactly rolling the dough when it comes to shelling out them type of contracts. So I think the good thing though that he has going for him is he's great at getting players to come there. Like, even if it doesn't work out, like, we're always going to have good classes. He's going to kill the portal. So that will always be there. I think his biggest issue is he just can't build a staff. And I don't know why that is. Because it's not him that's the play caller. He's got to be able to build a staff and get somebody to come in and call plays. So, but I agree with Don. Like, it depends on if he has those terrible moments and we don't progress, he will be on the hot seat for sure, or he'll be fired.
Yep. All right, so here's the big question. National title game and the winner. Coach Cassidy, you got to go first.
All right, well, 3 years ago, I think it was, Dan Lanning had his Oregon debut against his recently, departed Georgia Bulldog team. And I think the Ducks got shellacked like 70 to something. I can't remember exactly. I didn't look it up. But I'm going with Oregon and Georgia as my title game pick this year, and I think Oregon is going to win.
Wow. Okay. JT. I know JT ain't going to be a fan of that. Go ahead, JT.
This is so tough because we just don't know, like, who's going to be matched up in what bracket, part of the bracket. But if I just got to pick 2, I'm going to say it's going to be Georgia versus Ohio State. Like, those are the 2 steadiest programs where I don't see them having much errors during the season, and I think Ohio State gets them in that game.
I originally was thinking Ohio State, Georgia, but then you know what? I think it's going to be Oregon and Alabama, Lanning against DeBoer again. I think DeBoer wins again with Alabama. I just think sometimes it's one of those things, matchups. You can't get over the hump against a certain coach, and I think DeBoer might be the kryptonite for Lanning. And I'm going to go Alabama over Oregon. I know that sounds crazy.
Oh, that would be a nightmare.
I know that sounds crazy because DeBoer's a first-year coach, and everyone feels like Alabama lost a lot of players. But I just think that he can get it done. Like, I think with the 12-team playoff, a lot of things can happen. Injuries, NIL issues, guys looking forward to the NFL draft. Like, I'm excited for it because we're really going to see who are the strongest teams culturally in terms of who's buying in, who's bonding, who's united, and then also what coach is able to be that CEO, who can keep it all together. Hey, that's fine. You have your NIL deals. That's great. But when we're in the building, we're all together, right? Like, that is not an issue. You can have all the money you want. When we're in the building, let's go. And can everyone buy into that? And so we'll see. I think DeBoer can do it. I think he can do it. If he can win at Washington with that talent, He should be able to win at Alabama with that talent. And I think he's a program guy.
Dan Lanning, what did he tell you? He said they're playing for wins, not for likes, man. Like he's got him. He's got the culture locked in.
Get it right. Get it right. Don't say it wrong when you know what it was.
I don't remember what he said. It was so profound.
You know exactly what he said.
I don't remember exact words, but he should have him bought in. He said his culture comes first.
Don't be like that. Don't be like that. All right. So listen, before we end the show, going into week 1, true week 1 weekend predictions. Listen, there's not that many games on.
You mean week 0, bro?
No, it's listed as week 1. August 24th is week 1. It really is. Now, what I'll say about week 1 is we're only going to look at the 24th, right? Because week 2 will start with Thursday, August 29th. So to me, there's only one big matchup we can do this on. And by the way, just to remind people at home, Coach Cassidy, he's the college football expert for a reason. He was number 1. Yours truly, the Don, number 2. JT, at the bottom of the standings last year in weekend predictions. But maybe he can turn it around.
First of all,
with the nod,
I'm not going to argue with you about the stats of this show because you just keep adding stuff so you can catch somebody in a record. So whatever.
And it's amazing that I caught up. It's amazing. Like, how good is that? Listen. Just like
this week we'll predict 12 games. When he gets his lead, we'll only predict 3 games a week. But go ahead. We're only doing 1, so go ahead.
In baseball, you don't get the pennant because you're in the lead after 4 months. August, September.
Yeah, they also don't add 20 more games so that you.
Yes, they do. They play different. They used to play 144. Now they play 162.
Assignment so you can close the gap.
All right. Listen, our guest has to go. He spent enough time listening to you, JT. So. The 1 weekend prediction game, Saturday, August 24th. It's number 10 Florida State at Georgia Tech. Coach Cassidy, you're the champ from last year. Start us off. Who you got?
Well, so you're saying at Georgia Tech, but this thing's taking place in Dublin or something.
Yes, sorry. And yes, it is.
He might not be able to deliver the ball to his receivers, but he got his whole team beats for the trip over there. I don't know if you saw that on social media. There are these Seminole design beats. They look pretty sweet. Maybe I'll get a pair.
Don't wear them around me. Don't wear. You might lose them.
Who knows what happens when you go play a football game in Dublin? Georgia Tech got a coaching transition going on. They're going to be scrappy. They finished last year on an upswing, but I think Florida State's got too much talent and is the better team, and they will win the game. And if it's close down the stretch, they know to take a knee. And we'll not let that thing go in.
Ooh, 2 shots at the Hurricanes. 2 shots at the Hurricanes. It took JT a while to process that.
No, it's on a platter. You guys handed it to me on a platter.
Wow. JT, who you going with? I almost don't want to pick this game after that comment.
Actually, I'm going to pick this game because, unfortunately, I got to go to an FSU watch party to watch this game, and I want this to happen.
You're going to be
Georgia
petty, huh?
This game. DJU, trash in the States. You think it's going to change just because he's going overseas? It might be worse over there. So, yeah, I think Georgia Tech gets some FSU watch party. There's going to be a lot of Seminoles fans there, and I can't wait to see the looks on their faces as I wear a UM gear and they lose to Georgia Tech week 1. So I'm picking Georgia Tech.
Well, what's the line?
The line? I'm going to go with Florida State, and the line is
he ain't got no guns.
The line is 10.5 in favor of Florida State. So double-digit line. It might sound like a lot, so that leads me to believe Vegas does believe Florida State's a much better team. So while I don't think Florida State will have the success they had last year, I'm gonna go with Florida State here. I think the early season game will benefit Florida State. Georgia Tech's just not ready yet. So I'll go Florida State. The 10.5 is a tough one. So I will stay away. We'll stay away from that. But JT, so before we go, why are you going to a Florida State watch party?
Trojan horse, man. No, unfortunately, I have family members that are big FSU fans, and I do have to see them sometimes. So this is one of the only times we can agree on to go hang out. So, hey, sometimes you got to go to enemy territory to see family, man. Like, I don't want to be there, but if they lose, it'll be great. Brunch and the Seminoles lost, sign me up.
All right, Coach Cassidy, our college football expert. thank you again for taking the time to come on. We know it's always a fun show having you on, so we're really appreciative of it, and our fans and listeners are as well. We hope you can join us. Normally, what our routine is to bring you back for conference championship weekend that week right before, so we can go over some of the predictions here, as well as recap the season, the regular season, and give our predictions for the conference championship games and for the playoffs. So keep that week open for us if you can. But thank you as always. Hope you had a fun time.
Thank you, guys. It's always so much fun. I'm sorry for giving so much shade to you Canes fans tonight, but I couldn't resist.
That's all right. We like
all right,
it,
man. We gonna get our revenge real fast.
We like it now because now we feel like you truly are comfortable coming on the show, right? I think the first couple of years you would not have taken those shots at us and being Canes fans and at the Hurricanes, but now we know you truly are fully invested in the show. So.
And one thing I can say to appease you guys is that you'll have no trouble in the swamp this year.
Ooh, okay. I like that. That'll be a good start. I hope that's true. So to the fans and listeners out there, thank you to listening to us. Please subscribe to us, JT and the Don All Sports Podcast. We can be found on all of the major platforms, wherever you find all of your other favorite podcasts. And remember to also subscribe to the Give Us a Shot Network YouTube channel. And JT, I messed that up. And when you subscribe to us, if you like what we do, leave us a 5-star review. And JT,
if you don't like what we do,
give us a 5-star review. Listen, hadn't done that in a while. Have not done that in a while. And remember to also follow us on social media. Our handle at JT and the Don. We can be found on Instagram, X, Facebook, and TikTok. So, JT, great episode. Week 1, college football right around the corner. Can't wait. Great time of the year. But until the next episode, see ya.
Peace.